You're a tax deduction. You're a tax deduction. Are you a deduction? Everything's a tax deduction. Okay, maybe not everything is a tax deduction, but when you're running a business from your home, there are a lot of opportunities for deductions and tax savings that you do not want to miss. Hi, I'm attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Colorado, and I have helped hundreds of clients set up successful and tax-efficient home-based businesses. When you're operating a home-based business, you can take deductions for expenses related to your home office. Taking full advantage of the tax deductions available to you can have a significant impact and can save you potentially hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in taxes. But the IRS has a lot of strict rules when it comes to tax deductions and home office deductions. So you've got to be extra careful to not do anything that might raise any red flags with the IRS. So today I'm going to tell you about the 5 top tax deductions that you do not want to miss for your home business. First, if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button and click the little bell so you get a notification anytime I post a new video. I also want to give a special thanks to our friends over at Alliance Virtual Offices. Alliance is a game changer when it comes to running a business from your home. You can utilize their virtual office address services for a professional business address and to keep your home address private. You can get a virtual business phone number through Alliance to keep your cell phone or home phone number private. And you can even take advantage of their live receptionist services so that you can focus on your business and have a live, friendly, professional receptionist handle your phone calls for you. And the best part? These are all deductible business expenses. Of course, I'm hooking you guys up with a very special deal. If you visit this link and use the promo code GO180LawCo at checkout, you'll save 50% on the setup fee when you sign up for a new virtual office address through Alliance. Again, go to this link and use the promo code GO180LawCo to save 50% on the setup fee with a new virtual office address with Alliance. Before we get into these tax deductions for home offices, I want to get one big thing out of the way. Everything that I'm going to talk about in this video applies only to self-employed persons. This does not apply to W-2 employees who may work remotely from home for their employer. The 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act suspended these tax deductions through 2025 for employee home office expenses. So W-2 employees are not eligible for home office deductions. These are only for self-employed people who work in a home office. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, generally speaking, when it comes to tax deductions for our business, we can deduct any expense that is ordinary and necessary. So, whether you're working from home or not, there are going to be a lot of expenses typically that are both ordinary and necessary for your business. Now, the first home office tax deduction you do not want to miss is, of course, the home office tax deduction. These are expenses that relate directly to the business use of your home. This could include things like your rent, your insurance, utility bills, security systems, repairs for the home. How much of these expenses you can deduct, of course, it's going to depend. It's not like you can just take a full deduction for your entire rent payment. Some of these expenses are considered direct expenses, and these are expenses only for the business part of your home. For example, paint or repairs only to the home office area of your home. Subject to certain limits, of course, these direct expenses are fully deductible. Some expenses, on the other hand, are indirect. These are expenses related to the entire operation and running of your home, including the business portion of your home. So this would be expenses like rent payments, renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance, utility bills, security system, and other general repairs. These expenses are only deductible for the portion that they relate to the business use of your home, which I'll go into in a little bit more detail in a sec. Then, of course, there are unrelated expenses, which are not deductible business expenses. These are expenses for parts of your home that aren't used for business. This might be things like lawn care or painting other rooms or areas of your house, repairs to other areas of your home. Though, sometimes some of these might be deductible in other ways, but they're not home office deductions, so we're not counting them in this instance. So for these home office deductions, in order to qualify for the deductions, you must use your home or a part of your home exclusively and regularly as your principal place of business. Of course, there are exceptions to all of these rules, but generally speaking, exclusive use means you only use that area for business. It's exclusively used for business purposes. It doesn't have to be a whole room, a huge certain amount of square feet or anything like that. It just has to be some space that's dedicated and exclusively used for your business. So let's say you work from your kitchen table. If your kids or your family members or even you use that kitchen table every once in a while for, I don't know, arts and crafts or eating a meal, and you work at that kitchen table, sorry folks, that's not exclusive use. Now, maybe there is a specific seat at the kitchen table that nobody sits in unless it's you and you're working on your business. Maybe then, there might be a stretch, but there could be arguments at least that this is exclusively and regularly used for the business operation. So that small area could be considered your home office. There are different ways that you can take the home office deduction. Like I said before, direct expenses are fully deductible. But indirect expenses are only deductible to the extent that they are attributable to your business. And so to figure out that amount, how much of these expenses are we allowed to deduct, there are two ways that we can go about it. We can use the simplified method, or you can use your actual expenses. With the simplified method, you take the prescribed rate, which for 2021 is $5 per square foot, and you multiply that by the square footage of your home office area. And they have limited this to 300 square feet. So the maximum square footage that you can use with the simplified method is 300 square feet. So if we're multiplying $5 by 300 square feet, the maximum deduction that you could take under the simplified method would be $1,500. But let's say let's say you do have a dedicated office, a dedicated room in your home that you solely use for business, and it's 150 square feet. We multiply that by $5 per square foot, giving us a $750 deduction under the simplified method. With the other option, your actual expenses, you first determine the percentage of your home that's used for the business, and then you use that percentage of each expense, and that's your business deduction. So let's say the total square footage of your home is 1,500 square feet. And again, like in the last example, my home office is 150 square feet. That means 10%, 150 is 10% of 1,500. So 10% of my home office expenses, or my indirect expenses, would be deductible home office expenses. So you would use that 10% for your rent, 10% of your rent payment, 10% of your insurance costs, 10% of your utility bills. That would be the amount that you take for your home office tax deduction. So going back and comparing simplified method versus the actual expenses, we know that with the simplified method, we'd have a $750 deduction with our 150 square foot office. So if our total indirect expenses are $7,500 or more, then using the actual expenses, that 10% of our actual expenses is going to give us a higher deduction versus that $750 total with the simplified. Because if it's 10%, if our indirect expenses total are $8,000, then 10% is going to be $800, which is going to give us more than we would get under the simplified method. Vice versa, If our total indirect expenses are under $7,500, then we're going to be better off using that simplified method, which will give us $750 as the deduction. Now, the IRS doesn't treat all tax deductions in the same way. In fact, sometimes we refer to something as a deduction when it's really not a deduction. It might be more like a credit. And you don't report all tax deductions in the same way either. Some have to be reported on certain forms. Sometimes you have to amortize or depreciate things. Some things are above the line deductions, some have to be itemized. The point is, not all deductions are the same, and you have to take care to make sure you're reporting them in the proper way and in the proper amounts. So, as always, it is best to work with a tax professional. I recently connected with a company called Finance Pal, and I'm really excited about what they offer. Finance Pal offers a variety of services like bookkeeping, payroll, tax advisory, tax filing, accounting services, all for a flat, affordable monthly fee. And they work exclusively with small businesses to tailor a plan that works perfectly for each client's needs. So if you need help with your business's bookkeeping, accounting, tax filings, you want to make sure you're taking tax deductions properly, Finance Pal is going to be a good option for you. I'll put a link in the description so you guys can check them out. But I also have a special little secret for you. Of course, you can use my link in the description to request a quote from Finance Pal. But then, if you tell them I sent you and you ask for 50% off of the first month, they'll give it to you. So the home office tax deduction, we just covered that. That is, like I said, deductions relating to operating your business from your home. But that's not the only tax deduction that's available to home offices. There are other expenses that can be deductible. Some of those are expenses that make it look like we're not working from home. These aren't part of the home office tax deduction. They're more just normal business deductions, but they're still deductions that are available to home-based businesses. So anything that you pay for to make it look like you're not running this business out of your home. This can be things like your virtual office address through Alliance or whatever other company, virtual phone numbers, receptionist services, P.O. box expenses, all of those expenses that you incur to make your business look a little more professional, so it's not just you working out of your home. As long as they're considered ordinary and necessary, those are going to be typically fully deductible expenses. And then, of course, all other ordinary and necessary expenses, regardless of whether they're related to your home business or your home office or not. Any other ordinary and necessary expenses related to your business will be deductible in one way or another typically. These can be things like professional fees, legal fees, accounting fees, office supplies, computer equipment, machinery, travel costs to an extent. Not all travel costs are fully deductible, but travel costs can be a business deduction. Marketing or advertising expenses, labor costs for contractors or employees. All of these other expenses that you are likely incurring to operate and run your business are most likely going to be deductible in one way or another as well. And then finally, just because you're working from home doesn't mean you have to miss out on any other deductions or credits that might otherwise be available to you. Some of these aren't necessarily business deductions. They might be more personal. You report them more on the personal end versus the business end, but they can still ultimately help in reducing your tax bill. Of course, the QBI, the Qualified Business Income Deduction, which I talked about in a previous video. I will link to that in the description, but that QBI is available for home-based businesses just like it is any other business. Same goes for things like contributions to a health savings account, an HSA, if you're on a high deductible health insurance plan, or deductions or contributions for your retirement, like to a SEP IRA or any other qualified plan where you might be able to take a deduction for those contributions or a credit or something. But any of those other credits and deductions that might otherwise be available to you, you should absolutely take advantage of them to lower your overall tax liability. Like I said before, this stuff can get really complicated. Everything isn't treated the same. It's not all reported the same. The actual home office tax deductions, those are reported on IRS Form 8829, whereas if you're operating as a single member LLC or a pass-through entity, not an S Corp or a C Corp, some of the other expenses you might take on your Schedule C. But this 8829, the instructions for this form can be super helpful in determining other deductions that you might be able to take. Thanks again to our friends over at Alliance Virtual Offices. Remember, just because you're working from home doesn't mean you can't take deductions for all of the things that make it look like you're not working from home. So if you want to take advantage of those deductions for a virtual office address, maybe a phone number or receptionist service, again, use this link and the promo code GO180LawCo at checkout to save 50% on the setup fee when you sign up for a new virtual office address. We've got our bases covered now as far as taxes go. But if you want to make sure you're doing everything else properly, then check the description for a link to download my free Ultimate New Business Checklist. If you got value out of this video, hit that thumbs up, and again, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more episodes of All Up in Your Business. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.